Box plots can also be modified to help us visualize outliers. And to do that, we would create what's referred to as a modified box plot. And in example 4, we have instances of 3 modified box plots. We want to use these to identify any outliers, and we'll do that by looking for dots or data points that exist beyond the fences. So if this was not a modified box plot, for our first graph, this whisker, this line on the right, would continue out further until it hit this circle, and that would actually be where our fence exists. That was if we had an unmodified box plot or just a traditional box plot. Instead, what we have is this fence that's been moved in, and now instead of representing the maximum value, it's representing the maximum usual value. Since that's our maximum usual value, any data point beyond that modified fence is considered to be unusual. So in this case, we have one outlier because we have one data point, one dot, occurring beyond that fence. If we jump down and look at the third box plot, we again have that modified fence because normally, if we weren't looking at a modified box plot, this line would continue on and that fence would be drawn at that farthest left point. But instead, the modified box plot brings that fence in to reveal what we refer to as the minimum usual value. Since that's the breaking point for our usual values, anything beyond that, in this case on the low end, would be an outlier. So we have 2 outliers occurring on the low end in this third graph. For the graph in the middle, we just want to be very careful when we analyze a box plot and ask the question, is this a modified box plot? Modified box plots are very common because why not just use that and reveal those outliers all the time? It doesn't drastically change the picture. We still get the basic concept of the box plot, but we get the added advantage of seeing outliers. But we can't just look at a box plot and say, for instance, with the second one, that no outliers exist. We have to know that this is a modified box plot. If it is a modified box plot, then any outliers would be revealed like they were in the first graph and the third graph. In the second graph, we are told that this is a modified box plot in the problem. The fences, we look where the lowest and where the fence on the low end and the fence on the high end are. There are no data values that occur beyond that. So this second graph has no outliers. Those fences still represent the minimum and maximum usual values, and no data values are occurring beyond that. But again, we just want to make sure we know whether or not we're looking at a modified box plot, because if we were looking at just a traditional box plot, like we see in example 3, these are not modified, so they're not revealing outliers. So that's just a piece of notation, just some important information we need to keep our eye on, especially if we're reading real-world reports or trying to understand real-world information. We need to know how they're presenting that so that we can interpret it correctly.